check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
To die for the racists is lighter than a feather, but to die for the people is heavier than any mountain and deeper than any sea. U.E.P. Newton. This video will be an attempt to pay tribute to one of the most progressive organizations that have ever fought on US American soil, the Black Panther Party. Although it emerged out of the struggle of the people that were brought to America as slaves, and that have endured countless more crimes up to this day, it has brilliantly realized that racism is not an isolated issue, but a symptom of a far greater disease, capitalism. The Black Panthers have consequently been a guiding example of international solidarity, and as a predecessor of Third Worldism in general, and leading light communism in particular, it has outshone even the numerous revisionist parties of its time. We invite you to watch this video as a starting point to get to know the work of the Black Panther Party, because so much can be learned from their activity. We will first look at their praxis, explaining their way of organizing. Then we will talk about their theory, especially how it relates to our own, the theory of the leading light communist organization. Praxis. Whenever someone asks how communists are supposed to organize, it is safe to point to the practice of the Black Panther Party. It can be summarized beautifully in a quote by George Jackson. We are faced with two choices: to continue as we have done for 40 years fanning our pamphlets against the hurricane, or starting to build a new revolutionary culture that we will be able to turn on the old culture. And further, consciousness grows in spirals. Growth implies feeding and being fed. We feed consciousness by feeding people, addressing ourselves to their needs, the basic and social needs, organizing toward a united national left. After the people have created something that they are willing to defend, a wealth of new ideals and an autonomous subsistence infrastructure, then they are ready to be brought into open conflict with the ruling class and its supporters. What does that mean exactly? The Black Panthers addressed the immediate needs of the people. They knew that consciousness grows out of action and not by handing out pamphlets to the hungry. Their programs included preparing breakfast for school children, making shoes for the poor, and offering treatment for sickle cell anemia, addressing everyday problems of the black community. They did not try to make people revolutionaries by explaining dialectical materialism to them when many of these people could hardly get a proper education in school. No. They showed them vividly how they can survive amid a system that does not care about them and wants them dead once they start complaining about it. Neither did they beg the oppressor to reform their institutions by playing along with the game of staged elections. Instead, their goal was to replace the system by building institutions that would truly serve the people. The LLCO's goal of building a new power in the third world is just about that. New power is what we have named Lenin's concept of a second culture, or dual power. It is the people's institutions and the consciousness that opposes the mindset of the ruling capitalist system. In practice, this means, for example, handing out school supplies to children or performing medical checkups. We believe that practices like these will truly help advance the people on their way towards socialism, rather than some misguided organizations wasting money on election campaigns and expensive advertisements before even giving the people a material reason for voting for them. The path to Third Worldism. In response to critique by the Communist Party USA, Hugh Newton wrote, "Mr. Patterson questions whether blacks should have their own organization to fight for national liberation. While he often says the struggle is for national liberation, he really does not believe that blacks in the US are a colony. He says blacks made a mistake when they decided that they had to control and lead the fight for their liberation and freedom. He talks about the price they might have to pay. Does he propose that blacks wait for white labor to lead the liberation struggle at a time when white labor subjectively views itself as a beneficiary of capitalism? This conversation is strikingly similar to the daily discussions that third worldists have with other communists. When first worldists argue that the victory of socialism can only be achieved by the concerted action of all workers worldwide, we point out that this idea is illusory. If the oppressed masses of the third world were to wait for the revolutionary consciousness of the masses in the imperialist court to awaken, there would no longer be any world left to win by the time that happens. The Black Panthers insight is further illustrated by George Jackson. The black colony USA has little choice. We must enter the war on the side of the majority of the world's people, even if it means fighting the USA majority. We fight to live, and we are learning to fight. It'll be a war, to the knife if necessary. We can't wait until the generation that thinks of blacks as niggers and the rest of the world as gooks, chinks, spics, etc. has been educated away. It may be the reverse that happens. We niggers and gooks may be blown away first, or, if we survive, what will we inherit, a desert? The fact that the Black Panthers and other black revolutionaries kept referring to the United States as a fascist regime and to its police forces as the Gestapo is also significant. From the point of view of a generic first worldist communist, the United States does not meet the criteria of fascism. And why would they think that? Their parties are not banned and they enjoy the security of a functioning legal system. But they forget that people whom first worldism ignorantly summarizes as the proletariat can have very different material interests. As Newton pointed out in the quote above, white workers often enjoyed the benefits of American imperialism, while another group, black workers, were one of its victims, as they were oppressed, tortured and murdered by the state apparatus. This insight is also central to Third Worldism in general and leading light communism in particular. The reason why we believe that the Third World has to initiate a world socialist revolution is because it is currently not in the interest of the wealthy country's working class to overthrow the capitalist system. The Third World nature of the Black Panther Party ultimately manifests itself in Newton's theory of intercommunalism. It says that the United States has ceased to be a state and has instead transformed into an empire that spans the whole world. According to this theory, national liberation struggles are not a fight of an oppressed nation against an oppressing nation, but an attempt to liberate territory in an all-dominating world state with the USA as its global capital. However, with the end of the Cold War and the dissolution of the USSR, the LLCO nowadays rejects this theory. Without a doubt, if US imperialism wasn't currently being challenged by other emerging rival imperialist nations, the world might have ended up just the way that Newton perceived it. But the obvious presence of Russian and Chinese imperialism on the contemporary world stage are evidence to the contrary. Nonetheless, intercommunalism can still be found in the discourse of many third worldist tendencies. Views on gay and feminist struggle. The Black Panther Party called for the cooperation with all groups representing oppressed people. Addressing the backward views many held at this time, and sadly still hold today, and uncovering sexism and homophobia as functional equivalents to racism, Newton said, "We very well know sometimes our first instinct is to want to hit a homosexual in the mouth and want a woman to be quiet. We want to hit a homosexual in the mouth because we are afraid we might be homosexual. And we want to hit the woman or shut her up because we are afraid that she might castrate us or take the nuts that we might not have to start with. We must gain security in ourselves and therefore have respect and feelings for all oppressed people. We must not use the racist attitude that the white racists use against our people because they are black and poor. Many times the poorest white person is the most racist because he is afraid that he might lose something or discover something that he does not have. So, you're some kind of threat to him. This kind of psychology is in operation when we view oppressed people and we are angry with them because to their particular kind of behavior or their particular kind of deviation from the established norm. Legacy. The activities of the Black Panther Party was a shining climax of revolutionary organizing in the United States and a landmark in the development of socialist theory and practice. By synthesizing Mao Zedong thought into a coherent theory, it equipped the people with a weapon far more powerful than any police helicopter. It forced the American system to fight back with all its might. First with fascist-like violence and subversion, and nowadays by putting up democratic candidates that superficially pander to the interests of the black community. Panthers that literally gave their life for the liberation of the people, such as Fred Hampton, who was murdered in his sleep by the police, to name only one very famous example, are truly leading lights guiding humanity on the path towards communism. Their legacy will live on in the liberation struggles of the Third World.